powerful. That's what I tell people. There's a lot of fear around the technology, but what about the upside? And let's try to give that its proper due. So
absolutely, which is, I think what first of all, I think about, last time we saw some of these interactions, we brought in the Industrial Revolution, and now, Uranus back on the stage, ready to bring in the digital revolution. And it's like, no, this is where we're going. So like, we got to kind of find the way to embrace it. I like see so many of those strings really kind of coming up now. I think that's why it's like, no, we got to like learn how to use this in a positive way and steward our technology well. But that requires a lot of personal responsibility to steward yourself well in the digital age, because it's really not about them. It is about those little typing fingers on the other side, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to today's live Q&A of year 2 of the YouTube Academy. We're getting to bring some of our teachers back, answer questions if you have them, but also bring some enlightening new perspective on things that are going on around us. So thrilled to have you back, SJ. Like, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, Stormy. Thank you so much for having me again. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with you, with the audience, and just having a relaxing time talking astrology with a fellow astrologer and with other astrology enthusiasts. So
yeah, well, and it's so great. I see the chat is starting to light up. So good morning, everybody. Like, so happy to have you guys back. And, if you guys haven't, if you're new here, and you haven't had a chance to watch SJ's class, you want to check it out, talking about Uranus, talking about Neptune, like these outer planets, what they are, how we work with them. I'll make sure there's a link underneath the video, but also you can jump back into the playlist and check it out. And I'm telling you, if you are not following SJ on Twitter, you are missing out. The content, the thoughtfulness, the embodied astrology is fantastic. Just fantastic. You're doing good work, man.
thank you, Stormy. Means a lot. And I'm, just trying to, as an astrologer, as someone who's committed, just to show up. And I wake up sometimes, just say, what's my role and how can I do that role and add value? And, we watch transits, we follow the energies and the symbols. And I love sharing that with others. And that's what social media is perfect for, because ideas can be shared and people then can interact and then share their take. And so I view it kind of as a collaborative process as well. And Twitter is excellent for that.
Yeah. And it's, I laugh because we're talking about, Uranus and Neptune. And to me, that is like the ultimate representation of Twitter. Like, I feel like Twitter just is like sizzling, right? You got to like be together to be on Twitter. Whereas like Facebook, you can move a little bit slower. There's longer posts, there's a little bit more, but on Twitter, you are moving and you are responding and the conversation is happening. So it feels very Uranian to me. Also, the demographic is different.
Oh yeah. Much different. I feel like it's more sometimes intellectual, and I say that with just loosely, but it's language, right? So people that like to write or like to analyze with words and constructing sentences, that's a different type of thing, skill, or a different type of energy that some people prefer. Whereas Instagram can be more visual, which is beautiful. YouTube's more audio. So those who are interested in reading or writing, I think Twitter is a really great place to be.
Yeah. Well, and we've got some questions already starting to pop up a little bit in the chat. So you wanna field some questions here?
I'd love to. I would love to.
Awesome. Okay, so Anita is asking. She's an Aquarius, and she says Uranus is my ruler. What should I expect? That's kind of an open question. It's like, what do you want to expect for now, or what do you expect to experience in your chart? But let's have a go. What do you think?
My sense, Anita, would be, I'm guessing you're talking about your sun sign. So that would right away where I would want to start bringing the conversation into your chart itself. And for me, when I read charts, I'm very interested in the sign of the ascendant as the placement that sets the structure for the rest of the chart, and such that we can begin to really start delineating it. My astrology is very much a house-based astrology. And so knowing that ascendant sign would tell me, one, where your Uranus is in the chart. So what sign it's in, therefore what house it's in. and then how that might interact with the other houses. Saturn would be important because Saturn also is a ruler of Aquarius. So, excuse me, there's someone knocking there on my neighbor's door, pardon me, but these are the kind of deeper questions that I would want to kind of get into, maybe to start thinking about and answer. If you want to add that context, maybe you can there. That said, Aquarius is a sign of technology. It's a sign of kind of the future. It's a sign of a collective energy. And you might want to think about how your solar powers, that is to say your consciousness and your awareness, your selfhood, can be situated within some of those Aquarian themes. So that's kind of where I would just start. There's just some initial ideas.
Yeah, and I love to look at Uranus in the chart, and what I continue to find for myself and others is I'm like, this is the area you're going to do it different. And even if we just take it from the context of you'll just do it different from your family is what I continue to find with people. So it's always interesting to see where that individuation shows up, in your own little like mini rebellion that you're having. And it's not so much that you're trying to damn the man in terms of your family, but it's like, oh, I am kind of built to do this area maybe a little bit differently. For me, Uranus is in Sagittarius at my IC, and I am a way different parent than my parents, and they are delightful humans. So what about you? Where does Uranus live for you?
For me, my chart. I've got it in Scorpio. So I'm just before you. It was a time when Uranus went back and forth between Sagittarius and Scorpio, and it was just as it was in that anaretic degree. So, for me, it's I'm not sure how I would even think about it. The surprises, the kind of shifts that are unexpected. It's near my moon, and I think it certainly would relate to some of my experiences with my mom and the relationship there that I'll save everybody from. But there was definitely Uranian components to how our relationship went down. So sometimes if a Uranus is near another planet, it can bring its significations to the energies of that planet or what that planet may represent.
All right, so let's try this other question. We'll put all the Neptune questions together next, you guys. So Krista says, hi, SJ, she loves you, by the way. As a Scorpio ascendant with Uranus in the first house, it's hard to release control to the chaos of Uranus. Do you have any advice?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say, obviously living through the cycles of Scorpio activations every year might allow you to build experiences with that energy every time the sun activates that Uranus. And so I think it may be something that you can get better at over time just by paying attention to when it's activated. The second thing I would say would be to check where Mars is in the chart, because where Mars is situated, that Uranus is going to give way to the placement of Mars in vis-a-vis the rulership scheme. And so you may want to lean into, like, let's say, for example, you have Mars in the third. Maybe that would be like doing the gym work or grounding with the community through martial activity. Whenever the things about you, the first house Uranus energy, gets too overbearing. And I wonder too, I would want to talk to you about just how that's been and kind of explore it a little bit. Maybe changes in how self-perception, maybe changes in appearance that can happen quite quickly. I would suggest that could be kind of interesting too. I think that the Uranian is, you might have something unique to offer as you feel compelled to change yourself, maybe unexpectedly. There may be reasons for that. And so maybe, going with it sometimes may help you just kind of adjust or feel comfortable.
Yeah. And my goodness, how about some nodes at your ascendant? That would be very helpful for you right now to maybe lose a little bit of control, and hopefully in the right way, right?
Oh yeah, and that transiting south node with the first solar eclipse in Scorpio coming up here on the 25th of October. I always like the idea of surrender to win, just let go and release during the eclipse cycles. And you may want to be open with eclipses. I like to kind of do a call and response, like what questions might be asked based on the nativity. Who am I? And you can, whether it's just an internal kind of intuitive query, or if you have a religious proclivity or a concept of, a God or something you can pray. Who am I? And just help me be open to what answers may come, especially as eclipses arrive. I find it to be less of something we want to hold on to and more of something we want to release. And with Uranus there, it might be particularly interesting I wonder how close that south node will be to your Uranus, and how close those early degrees of Scorpio, where the solar eclipse is, how close that is to your Uranus. But either way, you probably still feel it somewhat.
Yeah. What do you think about, or what are your thoughts on Uranus in the third house for a Sag rising? Some of these are a little bit harder because you really have to see what else is going on in the chart. So
Yeah.
I want to like super lead with that as we're answering these questions and you guys are listening. Okay. Like we really have to have a little bit more to go on, but SJ, in a kind of general way, what's your vibe?
Yeah, you got it. So Sag ascendant, that would, I'm thinking you have Uranus then in Aquarius. Would that be accurate? So I'm just, the house systems can always be sometimes tough to visualize because we use different house systems, but just setting aside that, whatever sign Uranus is in, you really do want to check the ruling planet. So if you're a Capricorn Uranus or an Aquarius Uranus, you're going to be looking to Saturn. And what Saturn is doing is very much tied to the Uranus story. So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing I would say is, sibling relationships come right up when you think about the third house. And maybe you've had some surprises along those lines. I would want to explore that set of facts with you and that history with you. And if it's not blood relatives or familial relatives by law, maybe it's friends or close associates. And there may be times when you're spending, like a friend group where something changes quite quickly, or a new book gets introduced, or the whole energy shifts unexpectedly. And you may be having to adjust to, a new set of ideas in the local space. Those are some things I would think about. And, other than that, I'll just say here, I'm a fan of the Uranian. I think it's something where the fissures of reality that it can bring, the lightning flashes, I tend to think there's a higher regard, a higher reason, a higher rationale for those things. That's how I like to look at the outer planets. And I shared that in my video, that these are kind of spiritual energies in my view, as opposed to some will say Uranus is a malefic or something like this. I'm not really as much in that camp. So look for how the unexpected is trying to lead you somewhere. Where is it pulling you? And that's where I would be focused.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in the camp of spiritual basis as well. Yeah. So it's always, I think that's why we vibe, right? Yeah. It's kind of easier when you're coming from a little bit of the same perspective, which I think is beautiful. Okay, let's do one more Uranian question and see kind of what you think. Virgo sun conjunct Uranus in Virgo and Pluto in Virgo in the 11th house. What kind of influence does Uranus have in this case?
I would say it blends with things like when you think about the earth element, we're thinking about literally the earth environment, the physicality in the space. Storm and I were connecting earlier about plants and how wonderful it is to be around plants. Even gardening would be very Virgoan, where you're tending with a set of rules or a specific system. You're working with the earth in that analytical way. And so I would then wonder about not only with Pluto there, it provides a depth of experience. So maybe there's something like you're gardening. These are just hypotheticals. You're around your physical environment, and it releases something deep in you. I might, with this particular setup, try to get out into the earth. You may even want to lay in the earth and do some visualization with like the core of the earth for the Pluto. And then the Uranus may be the kind of flashes of insight that can come from, deliberate exercises like that. This is just one hypothetical. I mean, there's really so many ways these symbols can mix, but I would, you can take this and apply it in other ways. But that's some thoughts and some ideas, particularly if it's you're born during the daytime. This may be part of how you can develop the self, how you can develop your sense of identity would be through these kind of earthy, but like deliberately go in with the intention of like, this is something profound here, because it is profound, even if we don't have Pluto there. Like, right. Think about we're on an earth and it's growing all around us and we're of the earth. I mean, that's profound in its own ways.
Yeah. Absolutely. Which, speaking of like growing and kind of coming and going, what are your thoughts on Neptune being conjunct the ascendant? I always think this is an interesting position because I'm like, what am I looking at? That's like always the thought I have is, what am I actually looking at? Right.
Yeah, my sense is there is something about altered states. I mean, that's just where I go immediately. And I don't mean drugs like in a negative way. I just mean any kind of actions we can do here as humans to change our perceptions, even if it's temporarily, to experience reality differently than the mundane way that it's experienced. And so I think with someone with Neptune on the ascendant might be either have a passion for that, a calling for that, or even someone who is just grew up with like weird dreams or seeing spirits or anything that would be considered weird by the culture. This might be their unique talent, and I would encourage them to go with strange, odd, perceptive experiences and engender them if they are so inclined.
Yeah. And I do think that it makes that visual outward presentation, like you said, just very malleable, actually, which is kind of neat. I think of the signature of actresses and actors with strong Neptunian vibrations like that might be really, really helpful to kind of alter the state.
Yeah, and I think for relationships, it can be very useful at times, like you're saying, to blend in. The downside is maybe there are the boundaries is the self-protected. So you might want to do work about building the sense of identity so that there is some kind of stable structure there. But within that, it can be fun. Go to a party, and like when I was in high school, there were certain groups that people were labeled, like kickers, or I was from Texas, so or jocks or whatever. But there was always those people that could go in and out, and they were at the parties hanging with all the groups. And so I like this idea of a interoperability with identity.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I have Neptune down in my fourth house. It's not close to my Uranus, but they're both down there. But I have Pisces at the descendant. I could go anywhere, and still to this day, when I relate with people, it's very easy for me to jump in where they're at and kind of have a look around. So I can tell you that a Neptunian vibration at the descendant can be very, very useful. Now, it was also for a time in my life, the thing that was very damaging, because I would become the chameleon to whoever I was in love with that week. And then, you know what I mean? Like, SJ, listen, I was dating people who were like, listen, I love rock climbing. It's my whole heart. And my little Taurus behind, I was like, oh yeah, me too. I love rock climbing. They're like, I don't even have any gear. Like, I don't know anything about rock climbing. And it's this delusion that I'm going to become this thing right. And it was very, very damaging. When I look back at my portions of my relationship history, I could see how that chameleoning happened from me in those relationships. But it's not sustainable. It's simply not sustainable, and then honesty prevails. And I'm like, listen, I don't want my feet to leave the floor like at all, unless it's in a plane. So this is never going to work out. Also, I hate rocks. So, right. It becomes this whole, so if you've got Neptunian energy at the descendant, let me know in the chat if that's maybe ever happened to you.
I'll just share, I have it in my third house. And so my brother and I, there's definitely chameleon-esque qualities to him that he's kind of my Neptune. I've had to kind of be open to his shifts and morphs through the years. And so sometimes it can take on that energy of morphing and changeability can be reflected in, like in the seventh house case, your descendant case, the actual other people that we're close with, or the primary other through dating. But you may find it at work if you have it in the 10th house. Maybe it's a boss, or the nature of the work is just kind of hard to pin down. So I think that's a good hearing you share. I think it's a great example for people to think about how to apply it to those house topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's do one more Neptunian question, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this closing Saturn Uranus square, which this has been a really big deal. So I think this is a great question. What about having Neptune and Uranus at the ascendant. Oh, that's rich. That's good.
Yeah, I say it, you just think about how they would blend and combine. And I'm guessing this is someone with Capricorn when they're both there in Capricorn. I'm thinking this is probably a Capricorn rising. Um, you know, maybe when you have the lightning flash of the Uranian, okay, the bursts of knowledge, the rush of new information that Uranus can often bring, the sudden change of worldview, perception, sense of what you're here for, sense of identity, that may be something you may want to work with longer, maybe than someone that didn't have Neptune there, that maybe you're going to have to feel those changes out over an extended stretch, because Neptune, as we've said, makes it kind of like a hall of mirrors in a way. So I think the opportunity with it is that, you might, when you come out of those processes and those activations, have a kind of more, so the slowing down can be beneficial, right? Because it's a deeper saturation of kind of the true meaning of those Uranian flashes. And so I think that's the advantage of it, is it's not a rush to action or something that might be hasty. It really is a dispersal and a kind of feeling over time. So that would just be my initial sense. It's kind of the best of both worlds, actually. I'm a little jealous. So I think that's a cool energy. Yeah.
Me too. I think it's a super cool energy. And there at the ascendant, I just kind of have this visual of being a person that even when you walk in the room, I mean, it's electricity and water. You know what I mean? Like you're walking in, there's something I think very powerful about you when you walk in the room, or something that feels even very different. So it would be interesting to, as the gatekeeper at the ascendant, to know that sun and that moon that's behind there as well, because it can also be, I think, at least in my vision, where people may find you a bit standoffish, but they're not sure, because they're like, well, do you touch that? Like, what do I do over there? And then they get to know you and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's really great. Kind of that. It's very, I like it. That's what a vibration.
Oh yeah. And I really love that you mentioned electricity and water, because think about, if you've ever been in water with just even a little bit of a current, I mean, it really feels like wildly different and even kind of dangerous a little bit. I think this person may have an attraction and a kind of power where people may even, want to be in their presence, would be my sense. A powerful vibe that is, and I was going to say infectious, but just attractive, like an attractor, a magnet attracts things. Yeah. A magnetism, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. Oh, what a fun energy to just kind of analyze and be with, I think, for a minute. Personally, I liked that. So, all right, let's talk about the Saturn Uranus square that's happening in the sky. We're coming to this closing. This has like been a lot, and I get excited, SJ, because we're right on time. That's the thing that I think I keep landing at, is this, people are like, we've never been here before. I'm like, well, I mean, actually, according to astrology, we have. And every time we arrive on time and we make these huge leaps in freedoms, like it's been really profound at a society level. Obviously, like we're all alive to be seeing that, but we're coming into this last one. Like, how exciting. So I would love to hear your take in general on the wholeness of that. And what do you got?
Yeah. No, for sure. Absolutely. No, I mean, it's a profound square between two of our outer planets. And the one thing I think about just with the mundane work, this cycle has not been an easy one for the settled structures of society. Let's just put it that way. I mean, Saturn can be the foundations and the structures that we rely on. Governments, financial structures. Uranus is again the ability to break a structures apart. It's almost like there's a kryptonite for Saturn with Uranus, I think, and they're very similar in some ways because they deal with boundaries and borders and structures and breaking them or sustaining them. And so this square obviously has been some of the economic malaise, and that the collective has felt just by the numbers on the screen. We've seen that there's been economic turmoil, but I think we can extrapolate from that and just think about our own dependencies. What what do we depend on that formerly has been reliable that now is maybe changing or less reliable? And I think about the internet when I think about Uranus, because we're dealing with the Aquarian. Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius as well. So we're dealing with technology. And this period, I think, has been a major shift into the technological age, where we've deepened way more into this moment since March 2020, when that square began by sign, and then it began applying, and now it's this final application before it's over. So you may want to consider how technology's changed you, and both the positives and the negatives. What's been hard about being online more? Are you feeling more lonely or isolated? That can be what Saturn can signify. And these changes with technology, do you need to maybe augment it or plan for like Saturn and Pisces to get away from the technology? Maybe that's one way to go here. The other thing would be to think about how beautiful it's been to have the upgrades of Uranus in terms of the structures of how we can relate and connect through the technology. We were speaking about this a little bit earlier too, Stormy. And, but for me, it's about a square is dealing with challenge and tense energy that ultimately is pushing us into a new sense of settlement. And so even if it's been tense for you, just know that we're being pushed, guided to like, here, just a nudge to get us into this kind of new level of comfort. And I think technology, again, this is only going to increase as a part of our lives. And so maybe this square is compelling us or you or me, and I know it is for me, like how to do some balance here, and what can I add to my diet every day so I can capture the best of the technology, but then still have those grounded, deep structures to function at my fullest. So those are just a few thoughts. It's a really deep conversation. It's a really complex energy, but
yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think that on that societal mundane stage too, we have seen it effectively push and create it's kind of severed society a bit, like broken it open to kind of say, what do you really think about this? Because there's this level of like frustration that is like, what do we keep that's been conventional and does work and has proper form versus where do we also have to innovate and make space for what's next? And this is not entirely logical. And I think that has brought a bit of challenge. And, from that mundane, like global stage kind of platform to our homes, we have seen homes and relationships that can no longer fit the moving vibration need to meet their end. And it has not been Venus, right? Like not everything has been Venus. It's like, what? This has been a really good journey. I love you. I hope you go well. Some of them have been very F you, we're getting divorced. It has been what I think has been stuck from the outside to the inside that blocks progress has really been put into the light. And I don't know about you, but personally, as a human, what I've been able to watch some of our symptoms is like how irritable my fellow man is, and rightly so. It's digging and grinding into pieces of us that we really thought were the thing, and it's like, oh no, change that plan. That was good for a time and it doesn't work anymore. So that great excitement of what's next and the great fear of, oh shit, how am I going to get there? You know what I mean? And it's indecision. Oh my God. And we're in the height of retrogrades. The indecision, I think, is real, but so is the experimentation or the availability for it.
Oh yeah. I think you're speaking at least somewhat there to the nature of the signs. We're dealing with Taurus, the fixed earth, and Aquarius, the fixed air. These are energies of things that have, like you were saying, have worked for us for a while. These are stable ways of being that we have enjoyed maybe for longer periods that are comfortable. And when you have this square between Uranus and Saturn, it really is jostling us maybe away from more deeply embedded ways of being. And that can be in its own right challenging, just to change. Then when the fixed signs get roughed up, it's not a walk in the park. And I think when you're speaking a little bit more about some of the local astrology, like this week and next week, oh yeah, this Mercury retrograde, square Mars in Gemini, with Venus and in Virgo and those unique kind of complications, there's been some I'm looking very much for October as we can move into what I think will be a really nice few weeks of astrology with that lovely Libra stellium that can guide us. And maybe these are the kind of communal questions that Libra is so good at, answering, which is how can we make people around us feel safe and comfortable and enjoy the time we share together? And given that Libra will make the trines to Saturn, all of those planets will hit that Saturn in Aquarius. Maybe that's one way here to brace and adjust for whatever these deeper changes have been for you, is to consider others and consider the communities you're involved in. Because I find that can take us out of our own problems when we say, okay, hey, I've got some issues, sure, but look, these people rely on me. So let me just set my stuff aside for a little while. Of course, not selling ourselves out, but just as a way to just get a break from our own inner dialogues. So I'm really going to look forward to that Libra stellium.
Oh yeah, well, and we were just having a talk last week with Sasha Rose from the Venus School, and she's talking about how Venus is now coming into being her evening star energy. And I thought about that, and I'm like, yes, we've got to bring that beauty and that harmony back home to kind of put a little bit of the clash of the Titans to rest for a minute, because it's like there may be opposing viewpoints out there. There may be opposing viewpoints in here, but there's got to be some kind of stability or some kind of harmony that gets the opportunity to rebalance and kind of, assimilate everything that has been happening around us, to look at these, what appear to be unnecessary complications in our lives, and go, well, wait a minute, is this actually breaking me free from something? It's like the universe doing for me what I couldn't do for myself because I didn't understand how stuck I was. But from that Taurus energy, you wake up a mountain, the physical resources have gotten really different. And in Aquarius, that fixed mind frame, what we think we're open-minded. Listen, I thought I was so open-minded until I got married, and I'm like, no. Right? Like humans will allow you to see where your real level of open-mindedness is at. And we each in the human journey, I think, get to experience that struggle to growth. So I think that Libra season, I agree with you, will have a lot to offer to a little diplomacy. And Scorpio season's gonna help us out right here, right? It's like, hey, remember, friend, you too can be a jerk. So if you spot it, you got it, because if you didn't have it, you couldn't see it in somebody else.
Yep, totally. And I really like the metaphor of cohabitation with a significant other, even if it's just a roommate. If you want to know your problems, like where your fixed energy, how it's operating, get into a smaller space with another person, and then you'll have a clash of two fixed energies. I mean, and that is a great, I think, analogy for what we're dealing with on the collective. It's having to come to terms with what really does bother us, where we really are not going to negotiate, what isn't on the table, and then we may have to actually decide to include things that we formerly thought we wouldn't include in the negotiation. This may be what we're forced to do. And yeah, this Scorpio season, just hang on, folks, would be my advice, and really try to get spiritual. That's what I say always during eclipse season, but this one in particular, with Venus there in Scorpio with that solar eclipse, and then the Mars retrograde having some kind of rulership connection to it, right as it's stationing, I think we have to be prepared for kind of peak shock. And that eclipse is activating the fixed axis, just where Saturn and Uranus are. So it's very much a fixed, it's like the what is the machine that the doctors, I forgot the name of that, but they put it on the heart and they kind of, it's like
the paddle things,
yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. What's the word?
Yeah, there's a word, the charges, electric charges to the heart or something like this. But I think we're going to need to brace for the intensities that this Saturn Uranus square brings. We've got the election day with the second eclipse, that lunar eclipse in Taurus, right on the morning of election day there in America. Mm-hmm. And so it's a charged time. And So get spiritual would be my advice. I love what you said about recognizing other people are, where do we have commonality? Like we all have to eat, so that's good. They say food is the best way to bring people together. So maybe sharing meals with people that were different than us might be a strategy. After all, Venus rules Taurus and Venus rules Libra. And if not that exactly, maybe that kind of energy you can think about bringing into your day-to-day flow.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, find the similarities. The differences are easy to spot, but it is like to drop down into what's the same here and work from there, that I think allows us to, it's that setting aside of self for a minute and having to live through the spirit, especially, gosh, here in the United States, we're in a progressed balsamic lunar phase. We are going through the grief and the death and the natural grief and death that comes to people and to countries, and this idea, I think sometimes, SJ, I get concerned that in the United States, honestly, like, we forget that things are supposed to die, and you can die and live at the same time, but it's like, oh no, it's getting hard, we're going to have a recession, it's this is this is this is this is this, and it's like, inevitably it was always going to come, just like it will come for each of us personally. And it's not humans are incredible. I think we're one of the only species that gets to die off many times while we still live. That's it. And watch a country do that is really impactful. Defibrillator is the word.
Defibrillator. That's it. Thank you for the medically inclined and medically knowledgeable folks in the audience for that. Defibrillator. I took one biology class in junior high and never took another one. So it's one of the gaps in my knowledge. I wanted to say there, I think it's beautifully profound to think about the Scorpio archetype. And you look at the tarot and the death card, and when you see those depictions of the skeleton, it's got a scathe, and it's actually growing. There's things growing out of the earth. And so there's the idea of a rejuvenation that comes from, and Mars is a planet of cutting and of the type of work where you actually use knives. And I go back to the gardening analogy. Even with water, you're watering plants, that's the way to give them sustenance, but you have to sometimes dig holes and prepare those irrigation channels. And that can be the work of Mars here in Scorpio. In order to allow for regrowth, we have to sometimes dig in or even eliminate. We pull weeds out, right? We pull things away. So if things are passing on and dying, there's a rhyme and reason, that matter will go back and feed something else, other organisms, to thrive. And allow those organisms to thrive. So I love that idea of particularly thinking about it in the context of Scorpio. And that's the big player, here in less than a month now. So 28 September as we record, 25 October, and 23 October, Venus and the Sun enter Scorpio. So, basically within hours, same day. So get ready for Scorpio. Get ready for your Scorpio.
And Saturn coming out of retrograde, like, it is the 22nd through the 25th are like, I really think the 22nd through the 31st are lush with a concentrated amount of energy. And you know what is so funny? Like, we've got the eclipse coming and all of this, and it's big and it's powerful. And my big thing, I'm like, yeah, listen, Mercury's coming into Scorpio, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped because when Mercury gets into Scorpio, you get real focused. It's a laser sharp kind of energy, right? Where it is like, no, that has to be pruned. And it pride goes before the fall if you don't let it go, I think, when Mercury is down there, right? But it's also this gorgeous place at the depths where you can speak your shadow, and sometimes I think the shadow that we're most afraid of is how damn good we are at what we do and what we have to offer and what we could become. I think it is far scarier for us to honestly think of the surrender of aligning with the universe so powerfully that we become everything that we were meant to be. Like, I think that is sometimes more scary than I'm not enough. It's like, guess what? I'm fucking all of it. How about that? That's big. Like, that is a big conception to like bring in. And I'm like, Mercury is coming to Scorpio.
Wow. I'm really happy to hear it. And it's I love that it follows up, because during that solar eclipse, Mercury is still in Libra. And then after the eclipse, Mercury comes to those degrees, and it's almost like Mercury will help us process, I think, what is going on. And then by the time that next lunar eclipse comes, Mercury's right with the sun, like within, it's like even a few degree minutes during that second eclipse. And so I'm very happy you mentioned the role Mercury is going to play as a mitigating factor, but also as a strategy for flourishment, using Mercury. What is it? Magic, prayer, communicating with the gods, writing, tools of kind of magical writing, even like sigils if people are into that. I like writing with my left hand. I'm a right-handed person, but it opens up a way to kind of, get other ideas out, or it just does something, like it activates a deeper part of me. So this is, these are the kind of things where Mercury can help, even playing, games, or trying to get a little bit of get childlike as we deal with whatever big stuff is coming down the pike. So I loved your excitement, because I'm going to remember that. And when I'm looking at my charts in October, and I'm like, there's the Mercury in Scorpio, and thanks for sharing that, because it's important.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna, all of that activates my Jupiter in Scorpio in the third house, which sits quincunx to my Mercury in Gemini, right? Like, and I always have this thought that particular quincunx adjustment for me is a lot about, you meet me in public at Mercury Gemini, and I am busy and I am bringing information, I'm like the FedEx of astrology right now. But when you sit with me is when you get the Jupiter and Scorpio, or we get to the root of things. And what a fun way to experience myself and others. And so when Scorpio season comes around, I get busy recording, because it's like everything opens for me in a way that is different and can carry us, where we're going next. So yeah, like think about that in your chart, you guys. Where is this scorpionic light up happening for you, where you're going to be able to have a lot of access that's really powerful? Pathways of transformation, I think, are abundant. And we're not done. We'll eclipse in November, and we're not even done as we roll into 2023. Got a little bit more gas in the tank, but some nice starts.
Oh yeah. And 2023, when Mars stations and then Jupiter's back into Aries, that Jupiter story is one that is the other side of the Mars. It's the real active outer world engagement when Jupiter re-enters Aries and is moving fast, and it just goes through Aries and never comes back. And I feel like this eclipse season, with the digging deeper and the kind of staying with the it's just, you didn't say this, but I just feel like it's like the undergrowth. You go into the forest and there's these whole worlds, and this eclipse season is maybe a chance to sit with that and examine it and analyze it using the Mercury. But I feel like these lessons will very much have a chance to be put into use as early as the day before the winter solstice. Jupiter comes into Aries. What a beautiful winter solstice I think it will be. I cannot wait to celebrate that. And then this station direct to Mars on the 12th, they'll be making a nice sextile that just by sign there for much of that first part of next year. So it does to me feel very active pretty quickly here. And I love the idea of sitting with the scorpionic as a kind of moment of stillness, maybe.
Yeah, well, and on the global stage in general, I think we're all going to really see that, that movement of the Saturn-Uranus square, like, put us under some pressure. We had some real stuff to do, but Saturn's going to drop into Pisces, and then that thing becomes a sextile. Like, okay, all right, what did we learn? And you're going to have your spiritual body in some kind of alignment. You know what I mean? Like surrendering an old ideal for progress. I think Saturn in Pisces is going to call to the spirituality. Like, I always feel like Saturn's you got to level up here. It's time for more maturity kind of energy. And if you work against Saturn, it's a bit harder. Or if you're just not solid in those lessons yet, you feel the pressure or the doubt of it, I think, a bit more. So in that spiritual body, while we're heading into Scorpio season, remember, plants grow from the roots, not from the top. So what's in the spiritual roots down there? Because if you got poison in your roots or something in your root system is sick, that's the thing to go to in the safety of Scorpio season, that's not afraid to go to hell and back because it knows its way to the light, is the time, I think, to really do that. Like, it's not like there's a bad time for wellness, but you know, if I got to travel to the hell of stormy, I would really rather go with a Scorpio.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned the roots. They need water. You know, they can kind of pull water in as it rains. It settles into the deeper part of that soil, and then there is the water that trees. Oh, it's called groundwater, right? But you know, I think about what would that be for our lives. I mean, what's the kind of groundwater that we are pulling from to keep going? You know, and you know, whether that is even drinking water, frankly, anytime water signs emerge, I like the idea of making sure there's water around. It's important to cope with emotional epiphany or emotional trigger as it's emerging. And, you know, being able to express, this is why I like that Mercury coming to Scorpio too, because sometimes expressing the feeling is exactly what we need, just to tell someone, hey, can I talk to you? This is really frustrating me right now. And thank you for listening. And that's it. And just kind of burn it. And there it goes. But the expressing, because if we hold it in, it really does live with us and live inside of our bodies, whatever that challenge is. So maybe be thinking about that too, as things emerge, especially with Mars and Gemini, because that's in a Mercury ruled sign where we can write or talk or think about whatever the kind of deeper, you know, things that are operating emotionally in our deeper self, our deepest emotional unconscious selves. So.
Yeah. We've got a lot going on out there. Hydrate, rest, be mindful of the networks and the information that you're allowing to come in. We're all quite porous right now. You know, so be mindful of the space and who you're allowing access to, I think is a really great thing. And go to the spirit space, right? We straighten out spiritually and everything else lines itself up. So SJ, man, it is just always good to have some space and some time with you. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the conversation, and sending good vibes and love to everybody out there as you brave and we brave this together, and have courage and have hope and optimism. I just want to leave, you know, there's so much to be excited about if we can only kind of give a little bit of space for that intentionally. So where are you feeling something you're looking forward to, even like the rest of the day today? What might you be, you know, where could joy be found? I just want to kind of leave people with that question.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, you guys, I love you a ton, and I will keep you posted on where we're going next with the YouTube Academy. Make sure you're checking the website. Make sure you are checking the community tab. And of course, you've got links to all of year one that is out. You'll have access to the playlist of all of year two, so you can go back and engage the conversations. And of course, check out where these placements and these energies are ringing true for you in your chart. As always, I will make sure that SJ's contact information is linked in the description box down below. Reach out if you vibe, if you resonate, you know, if he's one of your teachers, if he's a friend, if he's whatever the link is for you guys, just reach out and connect. That's what we're doing here. So I love you guys a ton, and we will see you